It's a big weekend coming up over at Horseshoe, Indianapolis. There's the Indiana Derby. We have the Indiana Oaks, and I believe 8 stakes races on a 12-race program. It is a fantastic day. So we had to get the voice of Horseshoe, Indianapolis to join us, a man that I'm sure many of you have heard many times through the years at Fairgrounds, at Arlington, now over at Horseshoe, Indianapolis. John Dooley joins me to talk about the big Saturday. John, thanks so much for taking a few minutes out. How are you doing?
Doing great, Gino. Indiana Derby Week 2022, and we have no racing on Friday, but really looking forward to the big card. You noted, a dozen races, 8 stake races, including the Grade 3 Indiana Derby and Indiana Oaks. Really looking forward to the big day here in Indiana on Saturday.
So tell us a little bit about how it's been for you making the move over to Indiana. You've had a couple months over there now calling the races, and I'd imagine for you it was probably some mixed emotions, right? As one big part of your life finished up, you spent 20 plus years at Arlington. It was a new opportunity that opened up. So probably a whole lot of emotions going on over the last year or so for you.
Yeah, it's been a real roller coaster, and also we wrapped up the season. It was a tremendous meet. I've been down at Fairgrounds, of course, in New Orleans Fairgrounds Racecourse, and slots there since the 2004 season. So, after Epicenter, wins the Louisiana Derby and heads to Kentucky, under the Twin Spires for the first Saturday of May as, the Kentucky Derby favorite. And, of course, we all know the result with Sonny Leon and Rich Strike pulling off the upset of Epicenter. But all the emotion of wrapping up a great race meet at the Fairgrounds and then starting a new one, so much history. Fairgrounds 150 seasons for Fairgrounds Racecourse and Slots. And here at Horseshoe, Indianapolis, they're celebrating their 20th anniversary season. But I got here in April, of course, having lived up in Chicago. You noted 22 seasons at Arlington Park, so I've been a resident of Arlington Heights, and trying to settle down here in downtown Indianapolis. I enjoy the city. It's a great city, great people. It's they love their sports here too. I always love a good sports town. And having been fortunate to have been born and raised in New York, spent time in Cleveland. They love their, of course, you have the baseball team there in Cleveland. I don't know what they're called now. The Guardians.
Yeah, I think the Guardians, right? Yeah.
Chief Wahoo and the Tribe, back in the 90s.
Oh, yeah. Major League, right? We're thinking of Wild Thing. Yeah.
Exactly, and the Browns and the just everything with Cleveland, and then spending time down in Texas, of course, between the Dallas Stars and the Mavericks, and you can't forget the Dallas Cowboys. Then 22 seasons up in Chicago, of course, with the Cubs, White Sox, the Southsiders, and the Blackhawks. They were so great through the 2000s. Coach Grenville and the Blackhawks. So they'd often bring the Stanley Cup out to Arlington, and then I come to this city, and they do have the Indianapolis Indians, a AAA baseball team that's right here in downtown. They host big crowds, really great looking Victory Field, nice little ballpark. But it took some getting used to, and then the staff at Horseshoe Indianapolis, they were so welcoming. Caesars Entertainment, and with open arms as kind of an adopted Hoosier, and starting here in mid-April, and now time is just flying by. Now we're already into July, and here comes the Indiana Derby on Saturday, the big day of the meet here. So it's been wow, since the start of the year, it's just been nonstop. But I love the work, love thoroughbred racing, and let's go for Saturday.
Yeah, it's been a couple really good years for you. I was just thinking about a lot of the horses at Fairgrounds that you've called that have gone on to really good success in Triple Crown races. That has been the real place where, we've seen major horses prep moving forward, thinking about the Arlington Millions through the years and all the big horses. I mean, you have gotten to call some of the all-time greats and probably interact with some of the greatest trainers and jockeys and the best owners throughout all of the years. What a seat you've had to so much of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, you think back, to, Richard Mandela and the likes of some of those horses that have won the Arlington Million over the years. And now, I think back to the, late, great Hall of Famer Bobby Frankel. And now, of course, Chad Brown, as Bobby was his mentor. And now look at the success that Chad Brown, when you talk about turf racing, Chad Brown's name comes, right to the top of the list. And all those great horses that race with us, at Arlington Park, world-class facility, world-class turf course. But again, changing times, it's, we're in 2022 and Arlington was around for a long time. And obviously here, the 20th anniversary season of Horseshoe Indianapolis, the casino open 24/7. So, you get that, harmony, that relationship between gaming and horse racing that we all know about. I mean, I'm 100% a horse racing person, not so much the slots, but even the, fairgrounds racecourse and slots. So, it makes the money for, Churchill Downs Incorporated and, things change. But I was so fortunate to be there 22 seasons, a lot of great memories. And of course, the pizza man comes to mind, Florent Giroux. That was really part of his rise. I mean, a lot of people on a national level did not know Florent Giroux. And, he wins, a lot of races, including the Stars and Stripes with the pizza man, takes out that, great Arlington Million for the Illinois breds. And, Florent is going to be riding here on Saturday, and look forward to seeing him ride a horse that I really like, Best Actor.
Yeah, and I believe I just read that he's going to be headed out to Del Mar for the summer because you know what? It's smart. He sort of looked at the lay of the land, and Flavian Pratt, who was top dog out here for so long, he's moved his tack. There are a lot of really live mounts for a meet that has bigger field sizes than some of the other meets in Southern California. It's a great call for him, and I imagine he will do very, very well over here. The times that he has come out, he's done very, very well. So, well, we'll have to get you back on a show where you and I can go through history, because we can talk about hours of all the great
the Tin Man. You could just keep going. All the Europeans that won the million.
Wow, and just picking your brain about all of them would be so much fun. But we have the future to talk about, and some really good races coming up this weekend. It's one of the biggest days of the meet, maybe the biggest at Horseshoe Indianapolis, with the Indiana Derby and the fantastic supporting undercard of stakes races, and no shortage of big name barns. When the money is up, big barns are going to show up. There's $200,000 up for grabs and grade 3 status in the Indiana Oaks, $300,000 up for grabs and grade 3 status in the Indiana Derby. And we've got Brad Cox, Ken McPeak, Brendan Walsh, Tom Amos, Keith DeSormo, possibly. I think they may run at Prairie Meadows with Candy Ride and Candy Raid with what I was looking, but just the who's who of big barns shipping in for these big races. It feels like a fantastic day from top to bottom, and a day where you get some of the local horses get a chance to maybe step up and running in tougher spots. And then you get the big barns and some of the really big names. A perfect little snapshot into everything that is Horseshoe Indianapolis this weekend.
No, that's a great point. We have a couple local horses. New Year's Fever comes to mind, a horse trained by Brandy Steele, and also a really talented horse by the name of Mowens. And we saw that in one of our state bred races here. He's an Indiana bred. And when they were finishing up, John Court came in town to ride here. It was the Hoosier Sophomore Stakes. And at the end of the call, I said, some Lauer power. And Mike Lauer, he's so tough in those state bred stake races. But, he's entered to take on Open Company in the Indiana Derby. But, past winners, you go down the list. And, Brett Calhoun, Mr. Wireless, is also on the undercard here on Saturday. Doug O'Neill, Mike McCarthy, Brad Cox, having won back in 2020 shared sense with Florent Giroux, no stranger to the winner's circle here at Horseshoe Indianapolis. So as you mentioned, in the timing, here the rigors of the Triple Crown. Of course, I was a big Epicenter fan going into the Kentucky Derby, Preakness Stakes, and after the Belmont, Steve Asmussen, regrouping the 3-year-olds, they're heading up to Saratoga. You mentioned Del Mar, during the summer meet. And, I think the calendar fits for some of these up-and-coming 3-year-olds that are maybe trying to make a name, for themselves. Kenny McPeak mentioned, yes, he's wheeling, rattle and roll back really quick. And of course, you mentioned Arlington. I think the American Derby, for me, the American Derby meant turf, in Chicago. But this year was run on the dirt at Churchill Downs, and it proved a winning formula for Brian Hernandez Jr. and Kenny McPeak with rattle and roll. But of course, wheeled right back into action. But he mentioned to Jenny Reese, this horse has been training lights out. He's been training very well. We'll let the horse tell us, where he wants to go. And it's that time of the year, why not take a shot, see what you have, get against, this, grade 3 group on Saturday.
Absolutely.
And, see what you have. But I'm also, like I said, I'm intrigued a little bit by Best Actor, an up and coming horse. And when you talk about connections, to me, Brad Cox and Florent Giroux, they certainly know how to win on the big day here, in Shelbyville, Indiana.
Before the Indiana Derby comes that Indiana Oaks, and we'll have Interstate Daydream for Brad Cox in Fleury Racing Stable. And this is a very, very nice filly, John. She won the Black Eyed Susan. And if you look into her 5-race career overall, she's done so little wrong. One of her defeats came in the Adirondack in her second start when she lost to a filly named Wicked Halo, who's just continued to win races. We saw Wicked Halo win again last weekend. And another one of her defeats came in the Grade 1 Ashland on a wet track when she ran into a very, very nice filly named Nest that we've seen go on and perform very, very well. So you really can't knock much of what she's done. She's going to be the horse to beat, feels like, no doubt, in the Oaks.
And you'd have the best winner's circle photo ever if part ownership of my racehorse with 63 Caliber, who has actually been running bang up races here for Tom Amos, who's only 10 wins away from 4,000 career wins. It would be a real big win for Tom Amos, my racehorse, and all the owners of 63 Caliber, who's run well over the track. I also have my eye on Patna. I remember watching her down at the fairgrounds when she was on debut and behind of Belle Rebelle, and I remember that filly winning the opener on Louisiana Derby Day, because of course it started off a massive day at the fairgrounds on Louisiana Derby Day for Joel Rosario with Steve Asmussen. They won the opener with Belle Rebelle, and then of course later in the day Epicenter taking out the $1 Million TwinSpires.com Louisiana Derby, and I think she's a really talented Juddmonte homebred. You have Marcelino Pedrosa Jr., who's just been winning races in bunches here. He's got about 36 plus wins here this season as a 3-time riding champion in Horseshoe Indianapolis. He knows his way around this oval, and he's on a really talented Juddmonte homebred that continues to develop and looks like she's going in the right direction, talking about Patna. Yeah,
those two that you mentioned too. Patna, they're both progressing nicely, because in racing, everything isn't linear, right? It's not A plus B equals C, and immediately every horse just can be undefeated and win every single race. Sometimes it's progression. It's finding out this horse wants to go a little bit longer. They don't want to be behind horses. They do want to be on the front. Maybe we have to make a little equipment change some sort here and there, but whatever it is, these are horses that we see a lot of times at this point of the year, like you said, in these Derby, like the middle of the summer derbies, we get to see some horses that maybe weren't quite as precocious as others to get into the Triple Crown, but they are good horses and progressing. And those two kind of feel like horses that fit the Oaks in the Derby series really well. 63 Caliber, who has noticeably improved since she stretched out, right? She stretched out, went a little bit longer, and just looked like a completely different horse. She was always one that they were high on because she got bet in her debut at Fairgrounds.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, she was well back that day on debut.
She is she's very interesting. Like you said, if we got a win photo there, we'd have to get wide lens back up so you could fit everybody in the picture there. For
I think Cody Photo would sell a lot of photos. I think they have with 63 Caliber over our last couple of starts here. But you mentioned Candy Raid. I was kind of curious if she had gone and ran in the Indiana Oaks, because she doesn't have a lot of speed. And I thought, wow, it's an interesting spot for her, because she figures to, drop out toward the back, James Graham, and come with one of those patented James Graham, late runs, like he does so well for Keith DeSormo at the fairgrounds. And of course, I've never, as of yet, it's my first season at Horseshoe Indianapolis, so I haven't really seen James ride over this track. But I thought, wow, Candy Raid, can she, make up that ground late and maybe get the win? But as you pointed out, there's that other option, of course, in Iowa with Candy Raid for Keith DeSormo, in addition to the Indiana Oaks, where she was entered for this Saturday.
A good look at the field for the Indiana Oaks. It's going to go as race number 11 on Saturday. And following that Indiana Oaks is going to be the Grade 3 Indiana Derby, the big feature. We've talked a little about some of the horses that are in this field, but it is a good field. And as Rattle and Roll has been installed as the 5-2 lukewarm morning line favorite, he is wheeling back quickly on 7 days, but he was good. And when looking at the race that he ran and how he won, it wasn't as if he was a speed horse who was on the lead, battling it out, dealing with a ton of pressure, and had to run really, really hard all the way around. He got a pretty nice trip that, pulled him right into it. He won pretty well, kind of put him away and cleared off. So I can understand why you'd be willing to take another shot in here with a horse like this that's in good form, with a Grade 3 race and $300,000 up for grabs, where you're going to be either favored or one of the top choices.
Yeah, and I've liked this horse since the winter. I remember after
Mhm.
the race in the Fountain of Youth, I talked to Brian Hernandez Jr. about Rattle and Roll because there was talk, again, this is going back to the winter, that Kenny was talking about running of the horse in the Louisiana Derby. And when I was talking with Brian, he mentioned that, Rattle and Roll just, didn't like that track, Gulfstream Park. And, when we were going into the Louisiana Derby, I thought, Epicenters run well, but I thought maybe Rattle and Roll would be my, kind of Louisiana Derby pick, going back to March. But since then, of course, after that Fountain of Youth, having run, at the fairgrounds, but, real confidence boost taking out the American Derby. And now Kenny says, hey, a week later, but the horse is training well. The horse is, looking sharp, and let's, wheel him right back and maybe take out, a grade 3 race, the Indiana Derby. But I've liked Rattle and Roll since the winter. I know Brian was always high on this horse's ability and has a shot to make it wins back-to-back from the American Derby into this Saturday's grade 3.
I believe one of the big players in this race, also Actuator, I believe they are going to run here. This is another one. There's a good card over at Prairie Meadows this weekend with a couple stakes races. So there were some overlap with a couple horses that were cross-entered in these two. I think they were saying that Actuator was going to run in the Indiana Derby. He's a very, very talented 3-year-old who just earned a nice speed figure in breaking his maiden and winning by 7 lengths plus. You mentioned Best Actor a little earlier on. Those are sort of the next tier of horses that are lightly raced with major upside, types of horses who can improve so much from one start to the next.
Yeah, and then I look at a horse like King Ottoman, having spent 1997, 98, and 1999 before heading up to Chicago at Lone Star Park during their inaugural seasons, working for the late Steve Sexton, Corey Johnson, 2 titans of the sport. And King Ottoman, he's coming into his own too, coming off that win, Texas Derby win, trained by the Hall of Famer, Steve Asmussen. He has, of course, Epicenter, eyeing the Spa. But King Ottoman coming into this race, in good form and, out of the Texas heat. By the way, forecast-wise, I mean, we've had a hot Indiana Derby week, but Saturday, Gino, sunny and low 80s. So weather-wise, it looks like a real gem for Saturday's card.
Oh,
so
that's perfect.
We're really looking, we're looking forward to a big day with the 12 races and 8 stakes races here on Saturday. But I think, you got to give a horse like King Ottoman a big look. And then, of course, I kept going back to Best Actor. I'm like, this horse is 2 for 2. Having won at Oaklawn Park, a sloppy track. So, he's, a young horse, and yet he's already overcome obstacles or different track situations that have been put, forth in front of him. And he's, undefeated. Flo's been working the horse and will come in to ride. And as I mentioned, Flo, a 2-time winner of the Indiana Derby, going back to Shared Sense, and also with Axelrod for Michael McCarthy a few years ago.
And what's nice about Best Actor, like you said, in just his 2 starts, we've seen him already have to deal with an off track and a fast track. He's flashed speed. He's been able to sit off a little bit and show that if somebody else wants to go take the lead, he can relax nicely and then move to the front, which is another box you just kind of want to check with horses along the way. He fits very well in here. If anyone's looking for a big long shot, and kind of on the flip side, we talked about horses that are coming into this race with really nice form. There's one that's coming into this race where the form might be a little muddied up, but when you sort of look and go race by race as to why, we can go, okay, well, Trademark has run into Jack Christopher, who has been awesome in his return to the races this year. He's going to be headed to the Haskell, I believe. In the Bluegrass, he was behind Zandon, Smile Happy, and Emmanuel. So no shame in finishing behind those runners. Emmanuel is going to be one of the top choices in one of the big grade 1 turf races at Belmont this weekend. And then in the 2 races prior to that, his first 2 starts of the year, he was behind Classic Causeway, when Classic Causeway was really good at that point of the year at Tampa. One of those races came on a good track. I don't know if he's quite as good as some of the others in here, but for connections, if you're looking for maybe a long shot to some of the bottom of the exotics, if he could save ground from the inside, he's probably not going to have to deal with any of the monsters like he's faced in some of those recent races.
Yeah, and then there's a couple of locals in there, as I mentioned. Mowens has been doing great work against the Indiana breds and New Year's Fever. Brandy Steele also has that 3-year-old cross-centered for Saturday. We have a nice turf stake called the Snack Stakes. Kind of looking forward to calling that too. Action-packed turf race. It looks like, again, as I mentioned, we have a nice forecast. And then you get to how about the Rebel winner? Unoho.
I know we haven't even talked about him at all, really.
Yeah. Here comes, a massive Unoho, fan club, and even Fowler Blue. Doug O'Neill. People so associate Doug with the West Coast.
Yep.
And of course, Hot Rod Charlie, called that Louisiana Derby winner. Really liked How About Charlie, and wow, did he just continue to improve. I mean, Dubai World Cup is races in the Breeders' Cup Classic for Doug, but Doug O'Neill's a two-time winner of the Indiana Derby. I mean, I was just looking at Tammy Knox does a great job for us here at Horseshoe Indianapolis, the publicist, that she put together a nice Indiana Derby media guide. And I was going through it, and I'm like, wow, IRAP in 2017. And you go back even further in time, back to 2003, Excessive Pleasure was Doug O'Neill. I'm like, wow, I so associate him with the West Coast.
Yeah.
And yet, he's come here, he's had success, and he brings in Fowler Blue, and you get, of course, Kentucky Derby winning jockey Sonny Leone and his legion of fans that'll be here on Saturday too.
That's one thing I love about Doug. I love Doug quite a bit. He's a great guy, but one thing, they are very old school in that they run their horses a lot. They're not afraid to run them a lot, to run them back quickly, to ship them all over the place, to take on tough competition. They never shy away. They're always up for the challenge, and you can't win it if you're not in it, right? You have to give yourself an opportunity. I love that Doug is always willing to ship some horses around on big days, and we get a nice team there with some Kentucky Derby winning connections. They didn't win it together, but Kentucky Derby winners nonetheless teaming up there with Fowler Blue.
Well, that's what I'm saying too. It makes this race, from a handicapping perspective, such an intriguing race. Five times started in 2022. Fowler Blue, Unoho, of course, first run since the Arkansas Derby and a Rebel winner. Then you have, the up and comers, the horse like, like Best Actor. And, we mentioned him for Brad Coxon teaming up with Florent Giroux, and Rattle and Roll, a very short rest, which, sometimes you talk about, well, we're not going to see this horse until Saratoga. He's, not going to run for a while. And here, Ken is saying, hey, he's training great. He's eating up. Okay. Ready to kick down the stall door. Let's run him in the Grade 3 Indiana Derby, and, let's rock and roll with Rattle and Roll. So I think so many different handicap and angles are at play. I think it makes a really interesting race.
Yeah, fun storylines too. Like we're saying, with local horses, with horses coming back quickly, with horses on the up and
Actuators Group, King Ottoman from Texas.
Just a fun weekend ahead over at Horseshoe Indianapolis. We've been so lucky to have track announcer John Dooley, the voice of Horseshoe Indianapolis, join us here to help us talk about the big day. John, it's so nice to hear your voice, because it's like, for I think a lot of horse players, it's a warm, comforting voice that we've heard so often through the years, and probably more than some of our family and close friends that we hear when we play the races all so much. And I didn't get early on when I started working in racing, I didn't get the chance to interact with you quite as much, because a lot of times when I was working at TVG, we weren't necessarily covering some of the races where you would be talking. So we kind of missed each other a lot of times when talking, but it was so nice to catch up with you. And I hope we can get you back again anytime we have big days, anytime there's anything important going on or big races to promote. It's so nice to pick your brain and talk history with you.
Yeah, I mean, I love that 2-hour segment as I reminisce about great Arlington Million winners, 2000 through 2021.
Yes, so, that would be a blast, and people would love it. I know they would. You are someone who is just universally loved. Nobody ever has a bad thing to say about you. You are one of the absolute best when it comes to track announcers and calling the races. You paint a fantastic picture. It doesn't matter if it is one of the lower level races on the card or the biggest race of the meet. You always have excitement in your voice, and you always make it feel like it is the Kentucky Derby or the Louisiana Derby or the biggest race for that day. And I think that's something that I always really appreciate when I'm listening to your race calls, because you never feel like you're phoning it in. You never feel like, oh, this is work today. You always sound like you're excited to be there, and it makes me excited to want to play the races where you're calling them. So thank you so much for being such a great ambassador.
Gino, I appreciate that. It's like, I said, so much respect for all the horsemen, the men and women, that have put so much into this sport. And, you mentioned Doug O'Neill, a trainer that I respect. And, during the course of this race meet, Deshaun Parker, I knew his late father, Daryl, and you develop so many friendships, not only, on track, but off track. And, Deshaun having won his 6,000th career race here, so many great stories each and every day. It's just, so fortunate to be able to go to the track. I mean, again, a bad day at the track better than, a good day anywhere else. And, I've lived it for so many decades, whether it was my days back in New York or Chicago, and now fortunate to be working here with a great team at Horseshoe Indianapolis, and look forward to the winter down at Fairgrounds NOLA. But hopefully we can catch up sooner rather than later again.
Yes, and you mentioned Tammy earlier. We have to give a shout out because they have a great team over there. Tammy, Eric, Rachel does a really great job as a nice promoter of everything, and she's fantastic on social media. So shout out to the whole team. Probably leaving someone out, but I wanted to give some of them at least a mention because over the last few years, it's felt noticeable that they have really wanted to make the product the best it possibly can be.
Very true.
Upgrading everything, making it better for the bettors, for better friendly, right? The wagering menu, lower takeout, just lots of positives, lots of transparency. And I've seen so many people really excited about Horseshoe Indianapolis, and it feels like there's been a lot more buzz and a lot more people playing it. And it starts from the top and it trickles down. It really does. So great team over there, John.
Yeah, well said. I mean, Eric Hallstrom, in charge, and, really appreciate, as a vice president of racing and general manager, we have, the drone views. Air Horse One is up and above the track, and the stewards use that, fans use that. I look at that during some inquiries and think, wow, that horse, crossed and cleared. He was definitely clear. And then, no action taken, no changes made after an inquiry. We try to provide, handicappers, fans, bettors, horsemen's, with the, best views, that we can. And I think, I think we put out a good product out there. And for the most part, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but a special day for Saturday, and said a dozen races, 8 stakes. And for us, it's the big day of the meet. And, appreciate people like you, Gino, great job, your passion for the sport, your energy, and, for having me on. We appreciate people like you that help promote, our track on a big day this coming Saturday for Indiana Derby.
John, thank you so much. We're all going to give you a follow on social media at John G. Dooley. We'll be hearing you calling the big races out there this weekend, and best of luck with everything that's coming up for you in the next few months in the summer, and we'll talk again real soon.
Sounds good to me. Cheers, Gino.
Thanks so much. John Dooley there helping us out. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll have a lot more if you're listening on the podcast. If you're watching our video on social media, thanks so much for hanging out, and make sure to give John a